Oh, let's see. I think we're on. I just actually finished some of my roof. I had another section, and then you get tar all over you, and then you got to clean up with gas. So I'll talk a few minutes here. I kind of feel sad a little bit. I'm looking, let's see. And of course, I've read enough stuff where all that I've discussed, just by me reading reputable papers, a lot of those issues I could see were real issues. But I feel sad in this sense. I'm looking to see the latest activity by the El Defensor magazine. And the man's name was Homer Villarreal. The other family friends I was talking about was the same, different name. I knew it wasn't the same people. But as I look at all the little websites and all, the latest entry is like from 2016 of February. And he's been very active. I guess he had a radio station, and when I used to read the little magazine, the little newspaper, we kind of knew it was a little bit of like, the language was even more radical than me, I guess, but that's how it was. But I'm trying to see if he died, because I see all of his past. I didn't watch them. He was an activist, and then you Google it, and like there's other sites that say El Defensor is bullshit. They got their own. He was a political guy, and I just couldn't find any later entries from that month of January or of 2016. And so it just made me feel sad. I'm looking for an obit. Maybe he's still alive, but like I said, and so you feel sad in the sense that people that were politically active for years, and I don't know, I don't check on a lot of things, but either way, I read some articles that did indeed cause me to, I felt those were things that should have been spoken on. And that's how we got into a lot of that. It might also be a good example. Oh, I remember one time we used to listen to old Christian preachers on the radio, and I'd always check up the latest obituaries of people who had died. And I remember once a friend told me they were mentioning some old preacher, famous, like a Baptist type guy. I'm going to give you this. It just came to my mind. That way we'll have some value. And I wouldn't tell them unless these things come to my mind. But one of my friends said, we were talking about a particular preacher. I'm going to mention another one, though, right now. And just a few friends could verify this. But then someone said, oh, John, that preacher passed away many years ago. And I wasn't aware of it. So sort of like maybe what happened to the Homer, the publisher of El Defensor. And so you could still hear people's voices. And this man seemed to be very active, and you could see he engaged. Oh, maybe they got a hit on him. Many years ago, when we first became Christians, even before I started that little ministry, I came to South Texas. I joined the Navy when I was a kid. 17, just turned 18. You had to wait until 18, and then went to boot camp in Chicago or Great Lakes, Illinois, and then did the Corps School. Well, this came up the other day with a homeless friend that I met, and then got stationed in Kingsville, Texas. That's how I got here in 1980. I remember when I landed here in Corpus Airport. It looked nice because you see all the palm trees we had to get a cab. I think I was with one other guy, but maybe by myself. But you had to get a cab to the base from the airport. And that was the beginning of coming to Texas. And early on, when I first really accepted the Lord, me and some Navy friends, I had gotten in trouble when I was in the Navy, and came up, went UA, left the base, and went to the bus station in Kingsville. Me and a mutual friend. His name was Bill Fye. But we just laughed like we were still young, in that stage of, And so we went to the bus stop in Kingsville and said, we want to go a ticket to Houston, I believe. But we didn't have enough. He says, well, where can we, and we were just UA, unauthorized absence. So, well, where can $30 or whatever get us? Corpus Christi. That's the largest city. And really, that night, we took a bus and came to Corpus. That was really my first time. We landed at the airport, joining the Navy, going to Kingsville, but that was my first excursion to Corpus. And I had just went to, when we were in Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp and then later for A school to be a corpsman, we would go to Chicago. It was a little train you'd catch. And you go to Chicago. It was nice. We would go to party and all. But it's downtown Chicago, right off of the Great Lakes. And I would confuse. I used to do, not bad drugs, but, enough that you would like get high and forget things. And so sometimes I confused downtown Corpus because we were just partying. We left the base, went UA, and kind of lived. My friends have asked me recently, have you ever been homeless, John? And that's really the only time I kind of lived on the street, maybe for a week. We were just kind of, I stayed at that the original bus station. They built a new one in Corpus Christi. But I stayed there, like in the bus station downtown, and even sold blood at that blood bank, plasma bank. So that may have been a week. And a lot happened. I told that whole story before. But when I became a Christian, I remember this. We were in a Baptist church, good Baptist church, but they were fundamental Baptists. And had certain good Christians, but certain different types of ways. And we used to come to a famous fundamental Baptist preacher who started a ministry which is still here today in Corpus Christi. And his name was Lester Roloff. And we went. And there was like a lot of young guys, let's go to Brother Roloff's tonight. This was in the early 80s. And I started our ministry in 1987, which I spoke about earlier. So we were still young. Some of those friends knew, like, I got in trouble when I was in the Navy. And then, like, oh, this that guy that got in trouble. And so we'd come to Brother Roloff's, and I remember this, though. Sometimes the gifts of God in all of different of people, you don't even know. And I remember clearly, and of course Brother Roloff was around for many, many years. And so one night I was with my friend Richard Delgadio. I think he still lives in the area out in Ricardo. And we were at a house. Sometimes I forget things. Short-term memory. I said the other day I bought some razor blades. And then when I got home, I must have bought them and forgot. Because when I went to put them up, I also did that just the other day. After that story, I did it with toothpaste. I went and bought toothpaste, and I got back, so I need this for the house. And I must have bought another. And so short-term memory is different, I guess, because I can remember all the way back. And one day when I was at a little rent house in Kingsville, and we were all going to Brother Roloff's, early days of Christianity, I said to my friend, Richard, he was all excited about Brother Roloff. I remember saying this. I said, why are you so excited about a man? I said, he will be dead soon. I remember this. And my friend Richard got offended. And he simply said, why would you say that? I don't know why I said that. And I tried to make sure I don't exaggerate the date of Brother Roloff's death. And I told this maybe once or twice over the years. But it was maybe within a month or two that he died. I mean, it was so close to when I said that my friend remembered I said it. I don't know why I said that. He died in a plane crash. He was a pilot, Brother Roloff, and he had done a wonderful work, working with homeless people and kids on the street. And good man. One of the founders, I think they used to own the radio station that I broadcast on. I think they were the original owners of KCTA Radio, which later on I broadcast on. You could still hear Brother Rolo's sermons today. But that was just something interesting, like we weren't that much into the gifts of the Spirit in the church we're in. And that just came to my mind, and that did happen. And sometimes things happen as signs. And I don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't have used the El Defensor. No, I think it was, I read some other articles. And though I noticed like a few years ago, some of the recent stuff I just spoke on the last few days, I noticed that was very heated in this community. And it's very possible that some of the local people thought we made it through that. And for whatever reason, it all came up again. It all came up again. And I felt kind of sad. Now, maybe the man is still alive, but the latest I saw was like a blog post. And I didn't watch the YouTube videos, but he was active. And then there's other people that wrote websites. El Defensor is bullshit. But I'm glad that there were voices in the community. And he too had a radio show on, I think it's at 1440 Keys, which is a local news show. There are always times, and I'm doing a little work on adding some verses. I have a teaching post that goes up tomorrow. But I felt that came to my mind. So that was like a prophecy that even sometimes we don't know. I gave you that verse from Balaam on the first video. And those were prophecies, things that just came out. I think activism is important. I think it's important to know that there are certain things you'll do in life. You know what I thought of earlier? Came to my mind. But the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., which there are many questions till this day on how much government was involved. Today there's news, I just caught the news, radio news, as I was doing some work around here. There's news that came out today. I could get into the whole thing of Trump, James Clapper, the CIA. There's a lot of manipulation in a lot of that. And I know my liberal friends don't like to hear that. The other day, the news media reported, official report, the Justice Department just officially said, Trump Tower has never been tapped. It's official. And they come out with that right before a story breaks. And I'll credit CNN and Don Lemon. Because during the time, I was in New Jersey at the time, and Donald Trump said, found out my wires were just tapped, tweeted. And people criticized the tweet. In the end, it actually was true what he was saying. Because then the conversation, and he got that, more than likely from like a Breitbart or some conservative, those in the know, you know, the Bannon, now the head editor back at Breitbart, but those in the know, Trump got some information that there must have been like a FISA warrant to somehow listen in to phone calls of either him or some of his campaign people at Trump Tower, which I go by Trump Tower. All right. So, and I'm a news media person. Then the media began saying, this is outrageous. It's a lie. And then those who followed it posted links and all saying he lied, see that. And then what I said in the beginning was he probably found out that they actually were listening into some phone calls of his close associates for whatever reason. And then we all understood that people were being looked at in the Trump campaign for the whole Russia thing. So to me, I said, I bet you they just listened to some phone calls. But the mainstream media, and even just the other day, said it was a total fabrication. And there was a semantics and play on word. Like, did Obama have wire clippers? So what most common people would understand when Trump said that tweet originally, and I was in New Jersey walking in those areas when that came out,
But those that were anti-Trump said, what a fool. Mainstream media, he lied. We now have definitive proof. And CNN did an interview with James Clapper at the time. And they asked James Clapper, who was in the national security aspect of the government, James Clapper, NSA, I guess. And they asked Clapper, they said, we're going to get this down. We're going to make Trump look stupid. He believes that somehow there was listening into phone calls or any of that with any of his people, associates, or any of that took place at Trump Tower. He seems to believe that somehow he found out. And Clapper said to CNN, anything like that would have to go through me. If there was a FISA warrant to listen into phone calls to any of Trump's people, anything at the Trump Tower, I would know about it, James Clapper told CNN. Therefore, they reported, all the media reported, that Trump is a wacko, a psycho out in left field. And just 2 weeks ago, they came out again and said, it's definitive. Justice Department just released Trump Tower was never listened to, quote, never wiretapped. And then the same media, because I watched it the other night, came out and said that one of Trump's closest associates, who had the original campaign manager, Steve Manafort, he's now been put on notice by Bob Mueller, investigating Trump, that he's going to be indicted. Okay? What else did the media... Oh, you found that out. Do you know what else? They listened in, quote, tapped the private phone calls of Steve Manafort, who actually had a office and room and stayed at Trump Tower. If you looked at it fairly, what Trump originally said was true. But now he found that out, probably through, quote, some independent blogger, through the listening to conservative radio, whether it was Rush Limbaugh or Hannity or Reading and Breitbart. That's how he found that out initially. And the whole mainstream media, even till just the other day, said it was a fabrication. But also, it was just found out that they did indeed listen, the Obama administration, security agencies, before Trump got elected, they were listening to the phone calls of Steve Manafort. And the liberals will say, but that's because he was being looked at with his connections to Ukraine and others. Granted, yes, but it took place at Trump Tower. And I'm sure those phone calls had to do between Trump. They listened to, in essence, what Trump said was true. But because people really didn't want to believe it, but it was true. Not a big thing. I said from the beginning, that's probably what happened, and that was what happened. And instead of the news, the mainstream news, ABC, NBC, CBS, I watched them the other night, all they reported was, and they knew, yes, these were recordings of Trump's campaign manager, which some of them surely had Trump. They were listening into Trump, along with Manafort, on many of those recordings. But the media made, but I'll credit Don Lemon, CNN. He's the one that did the initial interview with Clapper, where Clapper said, now, look, I can remember it. Clapper said there was no listening into phone calls to any of the people that were at Trump Tower. That was the accusation of Trump. Said we never did that. He came on, and he lied to Congress before, and he told Don Lemon, if any listening into phone calls, quote, wiretapping, took place at Trump Tower, or any phone calls that had Trump that we listened to, he said, I would know about it at the head of the NSA. And he said it did not happen. Well, Don Lemon, to his credit, I guess last night I heard a radio clip of it, but it was Don Lemon now just asked James Clapper. He said, you know, you told me originally that there were no listening in to any conversations of Trump or at Trump Tower or any. And he said, well, the same thing Clapper did when he lied to Congress. He said, well, I stand by what I told you, last year, Don Lemon. I credit him because he did put him on the spot. See, what you had was manipulation. and talking about these particular issues. I read enough. Former District Attorney Carlos Valdez, he himself believing there was a particular type of wrongdoing in the whole Banyalas-Celis thing, the recusal and how he came back in. There was a judge, his name began with L, I forget, like a visiting judge, but he was taking case. And there were things that not only made a former DA, Carlos Valdez, but also the local lawyer community that they knew. And they were afraid. So I knew enough. But I just felt sad when I saw, looking for the most latest El Defensor thing, and then I saw a little history of that man, Homer Villarreal, I guess. And he was active at radio shows, YouTube clips, and then of course there's other websites. El Defensor is bullshit. But that's good. I'm glad that we have. And the way that he did it, I was familiar with that little magazine. The way that sometimes you say, John, but sometimes you're, look, when I curse in those things, those are not fabricated. But sometimes you have to use, you got to use little titles on things, little language, to get people's attention. So I'll do this short one. It's now long. I just kind of felt almost sad to see that I haven't seen an obituary on the man. But you just feel kind of sad. Times, change. Times change. Okay, let's end this one and we'll talk a little bit. This might be the last video. I'm adding some notes. God bless everybody.